Hi guys, welcome to a new video. So today I'm explaining the opposition of the Taurus and the Scorpio. So the Taurus and the Scorpio, now this is the second opposition to occur in the zodiac cycles, or cycle if you like, sorry. And basically, I feel like the Taurus and the Scorpio, they're both themed around material resources and wealth producing sort of activities. They follow on from signs that are more personal and relational, the Aries and the Libra respectively. And then the Taurus Scorpio opposition is more about material gain. However, Taurus is personal material gain and personal resources like money, physically tangible sort of rewards in return for their hard work that they put in. Scorpio, on the other hand, is more about resources of another person, the intangible gifts and rewards for their hard work. They are more about the sort of intangible, psychic, almost subconscious sort of resources that not only they have, but also that other people have. The Scorpio is the relationship water sign. Um, on the other hand, though, Taurus obviously is the personal earth sign. So, and they're both fixed modes as well. So, they have rulership over Mars and Pluto as well with Scorpio, but they're also representing Mars and Venus rulership, the same as the Aries and the Libra opposition, but it's more about resources and wealth. Taurus is more about literal wealth in an earthly sense, like money, a comfortable income, a job, resources like that. Scorpio is more wealth that's undercover. It's wealth that is almost subconscious. It's the resources like money of another person in a relationship as opposed to their own personal wealth, money, and resources. So that's a core sort of difference between them. Um, they are also the opposition also is themed around their levels of complexity as signs, whereas Taurus is a pretty grounded, obviously. So they're pretty straightforward, basic in their needs, this sort of theme to their sign. The Taurus is very straightforward, very straight thinking, straight minded. They're quite open and basic about their needs as well. And yeah, they're quite basic, they're quite earthly. The resources they want to get, as I say, namely, they are natural resources that we all think of. So they're money, they're material, earthly forms of wealth. That is Taurus. They're a very basic sort of philosophy of life, really. They're very average in a certain sense. Not saying that they're dull, but they do kind of have this very average, basic life. Like, for example, if you have Mercury in Taurus in your personal birth chart, your thought processes are going to have this Taurus vibe, this Taurus energy. And it's going to be very basic in your thought processing. You're not going to have any hidden agendas, really. You're not really going to scheme. You're not going to focus or brood too long on your thoughts about a certain matter. You're going to be quite basic, quite straightforward, and you're pretty much probably going to express what you think and be straightforward about your beliefs on a certain matter. You're not going to really have hidden agendas or sugarcoat much. But Scorpio, by the opposition, of course, they're opposite. So they are very um, complicated and complex, and they keep a lot hidden because they are quite secretive. So, using again this same example of if it was placed in your Mercury placement in your personal birth chart, because I just think it's an easier way to kind of explain some of the differences between them as their opposition, is that Scorpio Mercury, they're going to think very they're going to read between the lines. They're going to have a very outside of the box mentality to their own thoughts. So they're going to analyze their own thoughts and dissect them quite in detail. They're going to think very in depth about everything. And it's the same with their behavior. Like if the sun's in the sign or whatever, they are very, they almost do have hidden agendas. And it's not that they're manipulative per se. It's also not that they necessarily will sugarcoat anything, but it's more about they are secretive. They want this element of surprise to them, this sort of um, aura of secretiveness that they have, and it's to keep the intrigue going. Like people are attracted to the feeling that they're not seeing the whole personality of the Scorpio person. It attracts them because they want to know more, because the Scorpio is seductive by keeping a lot about themselves hidden. and it would be channeled through the thought processes if it were your Mercury placement in Scorpio in your personal birth chart. And then obviously on the other side of that, Taurus, they don't have this mystery and this seductiveness about them. They're the opposite, as I say. So they're very, very basic. What they think they normally just accept as the truth of the situation, and they will express it openly with people the majority of the time. They don't really hide their own thoughts. They don't really hold them back. Not that they're aggressive in imposing their thoughts on other people, because they're not. Taurus is a feminine, kind of quite a soft and nice sign. And actually, Taurus does not have this aggressive sort of Martian sort of energy that Scorpio does have. Taurus is very sensorial. Taurus is very about pleasures, indulging the body, creature comforts of the earthly plane, these sort of things. As I said, these are in the Taurus detailed explanation video, if you watch that. They're very much sort of grounded to the planet Earth, of course, and they are the fixed Earth sign. And they're sort of quite, they like to please themselves or the pleasures of the world. They like to work hard to get money, and then once they've got money, they like to spend it on things that will give them a feeling of luxury or a feeling of just comfort. Not necessarily luxury as much as like a Leo, because Tauruses don't really show off very often. And they're not particularly egocentric either, so they just kind of want to use the money that they've worked hard for in order to splurge on themselves and treat themselves so that they can have this sort of pleasurable sensorial sort of experience in whatever way they want to get that from. Not in the way to show off, in a way to just treat themselves and make themselves look good, feel good, all of that. But it's more personal to them. It's not like they're doing it to brag or to show off to other people necessarily at all. But Scorpio doesn't really need these creature comforts. In fact, they're not really interested in them. They're more sort of interested in the mind and human psychology and what we hide from other people and even from ourselves potentially too. They have this deep understanding of psychology, the human mind. They have this deep understanding of not only the fact that they hide a lot of their own thoughts from themselves because of the subconscious, but also that other people do too. And even if they are consciously aware of it, they're not going to express half of what they actually want to the other person in a relationship, say, because, for example, because they're secretive. They have this element of like intrigue that comes from not revealing the whole entirety of your true personality to others. And the subconscious mind in general, the parts of our mind that we can't necessarily access consciously at all, ever, except maybe while we're dreaming, that holds a lot of fascination for Scorpio. They're very interested in the subconscious mind and the power that the subconscious mind has, because it's like, even though it is still constantly working and taking in information and integrating the information, obviously, like our conscious mind, it's doing it in a level that is subconscious, obviously. So we're not aware that it's going on, but the thought processes are obviously like the conscious mind, they are still constantly going on. Our subconscious mind is still constantly active and integrating all this information. It's just that it's not obvious to us in the sense that the conscious mind is, obviously. So it's this secretive element which is very interesting to Scorpios and also the Cancers and Pisces too, I feel like, but not in so much of a deep level. They're more interested in it for the intuitive sort of psychic type abilities that can afford you. But is this element of complexity like is very enhanced, and Taurus doesn't have that. They don't really have any interest in that. They have interest in physical sort of resources. So instead of like debating on people's capacity to be psychic or people's capacity to kind of predict the future before it happens in dreams or anything like metaphysical subjects like that, they don't contemplate on that on the Taurus side. The Taurus is very sort of like, they contemplate on physical abilities, like, am I physically able to do this job well enough that I can get paid the amount that I deserve so that I can then go and buy for myself and treat myself to all these sensorial earthly pleasures that I want to indulge in myself, and that will be the reward for my hard work that I put in. They ponder that, like it's the tangible aspects of life, the things that we can see, that the Taurus ponders. But the Scorpio definitely ponders, and part of this is just that they are a water sign, but they are the most intense at this, I would say, out of all the signs in the zodiac, that they are pondering these sort of metaphysical aspects and abilities that humans have. Like, they're not interested in the 9 to 5 job, they're not necessarily interested in getting paid in order to get access to these earthly personal resources that's going to give them these pleasurable, sensorial, earthly experiences. They're not interested in that. They're interested in the mind. They're interested in psychology. The deeper meaning behind every event that happens to them in life is what they're interested in. So that's another way that their opposition is very pronounced. Plurality, I think, is the way that you technically would say it if you were a professional astrologer. Of course, I'm not. But yeah, it's kind of an opposition. They're just obviously opposite, that sort of thing. So another thing is that there's kind of, with Taurus, there's this sort of, I work hard in order to get my money, as I say, so that I can give myself my own personal resources. Um, the second house in astrology represents money, it represents self-worth, it represents personal resources, money, all of that, jobs and professional life work and aspirations, but it represents that in the sense of carrying out those duties in order to get access to personal resources such as money or pleasurable sensorial experiences. And Taurus is the traditional ruler of the second house, so that they are themes of the second house. So Taurus is kind of personal, money and resources. So it's kind of like the personal self aspect, the self side of rewards and resources, versus the Scorpio, which is the other side of the resources and the rewards that life gives them. They are the representative of the eighth house, which is about rebirth, regeneration. They can be very, obviously, they are fixed water, so they are quite unadaptable. But when they do want to change, they will change in a very dramatic way. The change is not a slight little change that happens constantly like the mutable signs do, because Scorpio is a fixed sign. They do not like the change at all. So if they are acknowledging change as necessary, it's a very, very big change once it has occurred and they have let it happen. So that's the theme of regeneration and rebirth. It's a very dramatic change. It's through hardship that they learn to change, and they change in a very dramatic way, because they're fixed and they don't like to change for the sake of it. They don't do it for no reason. So it's also about almost like the personal resources, the money of a partner. Say that you're married to someone, the financial obligations that you have towards the other person's money and resources is kind of also themes of the eighth house. In this sort of, that's relevant to this specific opposition I'm trying to explain. So, well, Taurus is the self aspect of money and resources and, rewards in order to treat myself, pamper myself. Scorpio is the other aspect of that. They are more about the other person's resources and how they can take the other person's resources, not obviously in a nasty way, but to use the other person's resources that the other person is equipped with and then apply it to themselves so that they can benefit from it too, ultimately, is the end result they're trying to go for. So the opposition is basic sort of approach to life and basic philosophy of life, wanting to work hard so that I can get money, so that I can pamper myself and live in a pleasurable, peaceful, harmonious existence, which is Taurus. It's this basic sort of thing. Versus the Scorpios, very complex. They think very deep, very long and hard on everything that happens to them in their life. Not as grounded, of course, and they don't want a peaceful existence. They want a energetic existence. They want this sort of challenging mentality. They do have Martian energy as well as Plutonian energy, which of course that is the main aspect of their rebirth, regeneration sort of thing, is the Plutonian energy. Because that distinguishes them from obviously just being a water version of Aries, which they would be if they were just Martian ruled without the Plutonian vibes. But they're about this more extreme, complicated sort of philosophy of life. They're more about things that aren't basic, things that you can't see. Like, instead of, oh, look, I've got £500 in my bank account, that's my rewards, that's the resources I've got in order to give myself power and social status, that's represented by Taurus. It's basic, it's tangible, you can see it, it's money. Scorpio is more about, well, I have this gift of intuitive insight, I'm psychic, I can read people's minds quite literally, so that's the power that I have in order to be powerful and elevate my social status above a certain other person. They're more about, let's investigate, let's dig really deep into my resources that I have in order to be powerful and more powerful than another person. And then they also would dig deep using the psychic intuitive abilities they have at the other person's mind and thought processes in order to figure out what power they have deep inside of them that they're hiding. that they have in order to give them a high social status and elevate their identity above other people, and then they'll try and learn from that, integrate it into their sort of psychic resources in order to further increase their power and their social status above other people. And it's also because they are with the relationship side, it's also about give and take of this deep sort of transformational power that they have. And it's not just centered on the personal aspect of the Scorpio themselves, it's on the person in the relationship with them too, because they're very deep, very intimate. So it's like a sharing of minds and sharing of the powers of the mind of the Scorpio and then of the other person in the relationship with the Scorpio. So it's like they give and take from each other in this union, this relationship, in order to get more powerful in their minds, in their subconscious minds. So it's like, well, I'm psychic, so I have over other people in a high social status, that's Scorpio, versus Taurus, well, I have a high social status and I'm powerful over other people because I've got more money than them. So hopefully that described the base of their differences, that in terms of the opposition, it's like tangible, real world resources that everyone can see, touch, feel, smell, all of that. See, here is the earthly sort of resources that obviously everyone's aware of. It could be their conscious mind as well, if you want to relate it a little bit more directly to the Scorpio, is that they're using the subconscious mind and the power that lies in their subconscious mind in order to give themselves a high social status and heighten their awareness. Taurus could do that more consciously, like they use their conscious mind and their conscious thought processes to kind of build their knowledge, their conscious knowledge, in order to have a higher social status, whereas Scorpio, they do that with their subconscious minds. They dig deep and investigate their own minds, but not the basic conscious thoughts that they're having in their mind. It's the deeper subconscious thoughts they're having in their minds. They will pay attention to their dreams a lot more. They'll think that their dreams have a lot of meaning that can be translated into their real waking lives, and they'll do that sort of thing instead. So yeah, hopefully you understood that. I tried to simplify the opposition as best as possible. I think I said what I wanted to say. If not, I could obviously just always address it in a future video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching if you did, listening, and I'll see you next time, hopefully.